da 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 la la da 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 da. Hello, my dear friends. Still walking on down the road. Still too unsure to truly share where exactly I'm headed, or how quickly it is that I'm moving. The human hand holding mine keeps changing. The body and face attached to it are probably of little consequence, but he holds on tightly and guides me. And I'm afraid to admit that I need that right now, because I have no idea whatsoever what I'm doing. I'm just trusting and moving my feet one step at a time, and allowing that hand to pull me this way and that. Sweet, kind thing that it is. Sometimes it lets go, though, and the world goes dark. Black, black, blackness everywhere, except for the almost full moon up there in the sky. That full September moon I've been waiting for so patiently and writing about so dutifully. There's just me in the darkness, and that moon, and the hand is gone, and I used to find such things so lovely, so wonderfully velvety dark and lovely. But now I'm just alone and terrified, and I scream and scream and scream. And then the hand comes back, and the light with it. And I keep on walking. Where did that powerful, monstrous thing of darkness I used to be go? Oh, that's right. Gone. Sacrificed to my humanity. How embarrassing. Well, anyway, to distract myself for just a little, here is a story. Stories have been helpful. Stories always return to me in my time of need. Oh, I am grateful to the God of stories for that, whoever that may be. I used to think that in my world it was me, but I am not in control here anymore. I am just walking and holding on tight. Anyway, story for now, bravery for later. Once upon a time, there was a man who died. It was nothing remarkable, really. He had lived a very normal life, full of very normal things, very normal people, very normal occurrences. Sure, there had been many things that he'd wanted to do. There'd been many people he'd wanted to meet. There'd been many places he'd wanted to go. But at his heart, he was afraid that he was a coward. And so he did the same things with the same people in the same place for his relatively short life. He didn't live to be an old man. Such is the way of it sometimes. He was in his prime, but he didn't feel it. Because what does it mean to be in your prime if you are not living to your fullest? At least according to the dictates of your own heart. I suppose what I mean to say is that it doesn't matter at all. not to the universe, not to destiny, not to anyone else. However you decide to live your life. Any life can be considered well lived if you enjoy it. But he didn't really enjoy his life. He didn't detest it or anything. He just felt he was a coward. He lived safely, quietly, and not that anyone else would care to call it such. But deep down, he felt his life had been dull. And deep down is the only place where such a thought as that matters. He chose to live his life the way he did. Well, who knows why? Perhaps because his parents had hammered into his mind at a young age that he must be responsible, frugal, reliable. Perhaps because he was so afraid of failure or of disappointing anyone else, other than himself, of course. Perhaps he was afraid of embarrassment. Perhaps he was afraid he might like things like chaos, adventure, vice, and unpredictability too much and get swallowed up by them. Who knows? But his heart, or maybe more accurately his body, ached for something else, for his entire short life. And then he died. The end. Well, no, you see. You know what they say about ghosts? I'm not sure whether or not it is true, but they say that ghosts remain because of their unfinished business. This young man certainly had unfinished business indeed. It was with himself. But what could he do about it? As a ghost, he wandered his little apartment for a bit. He looked at the remnants of his little life as others packed it away. How small it seemed, how cowardly, he judged. He watched his already decaying body being brought to the hospital, then to the morgue, then to the small funeral, then, finally, to the grave. There were people around his body at every step of the journey, of course, and they were sad. They were loving. They lamented his absence, but they didn't know what a horrible coward he had been. They didn't know the truth that his ghost knew and was disgusted by. And as they tearfully and lovingly lowered his body into the earth, he screamed at himself to wake up, wake up, wake up and live your life. Why didn't you wake up and live your life? Now it's too late. How can I rest? I spent my whole life resting. What will I do now that it's eternity? This sad and regretful ghost stood at his own grave for what felt like that eternity, though in reality it was just from noon until midnight. But time for ghosts is a dreadfully unbearable thing, because you see, my dears, they are stuck in it. Oh, to be stuck in something as flimsy as time. Ugh. What a dreadful thought. Under the light of the full September moon, this ghost felt such anger, such loathing, such sorrow, all directed at that poor body in the ground that had left so much undone, unexperienced, unknown. And sometimes ghosts do not quite fully know the extent of their own spectral magic. The poor things. The sky clouded over, and the moonlight disappeared. Thunder rolled, rain poured, lightning struck. It struck right into his headstone, splitting the shiny new thing in two. The ghost screamed with a voice that only the owls and the coyotes could hear, and a hand plunged its way through the moist dirt and reached out for the touch of the rain. The ghost saw his own body scramble up and out of the earth, gasping for air with rasping lungs. Oh no, I'm alive, the ghost thought. They buried me alive. But then he saw his face. His eyes were clouded over like that moon. His lips were white and cracked. His skin was gray. The blood that came out of his mouth was black and clotted. Indeed, he was dead. His body was dead, yet there it was, scrambling around, clawing at the earth, trying to live. Go back into your grave. The man screamed at his body, but it would not obey. It was so ugly, its mouth open in such desperation, its hands grabbing with such longing. Go back in before anyone sees you. The ghost wept. But his body still did not obey. It tried and failed several times to stand, but eventually it succeeded. It stumbled through the cemetery and towards what was once its little town, and the ghost followed it, horrified, hoping that eventually it would see him and listen. Though it was past midnight, there were still some others up and about, drunks stumbling home from the bar themselves, lights on in homes and taverns. The body ambled through the streets, tearing at his clothes which stifled him. He ripped them off himself in shards, covered now in only wet, threadbare rags. No, for the love of all that is decent, keep your suit on, the ghost shouted, but the body did not obey. Women screamed and slammed their windows shut. Men shouted and threw rocks at him. But the body just roared and scrambled and shouted and threw things back. Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! The ghost yelled and tried to physically restrain his own body. But it could not feel him, wouldn't acknowledge him. It appeared to be a mindless thing, made only of pain and anger. He stopped in front of the tavern where several patrons had been exiting, laughing and oblivious, until they saw the half-naked, frightful thing, and chaos broke out. One inebriated tavern-goer came up and grabbed the body, angry that it had frightened away his romantic conquest. But he saw the dead eyes and was filled with disgust. The corpse lashed its arms out, kicked, flailed, scratched. But it was clumsy in its rage, and the aggressor ran off into the night. "Please, please, please, stop," the ghost begged his body. The rain fell harder, and the body made its way to the middle of the road. A few carriages went around him. Some stopped and shouted something, and then went the other way. A single piano player played a sad song from a window far away. The corpse froze as it heard it, listened, and moaned, not in anger now, but in deepest sadness. And it began to sway. Its rags fell away from its rotting self, and naked, the dead thing danced in the rain, mouth open, gasping for something it could never breathe in enough of. The ghost stood in front of it, its transparent hands covering its invisible face. "No, no, no. Stop dancing. Put your clothes on, please. What have I done to deserve this?" The music was so sad, though. So decadent. The ghost couldn't help but sway a little too. Couldn't help but dance with his body just a little bit, even in this terrible humiliation. Until he heard the shouts of a constable down the way. Footsteps ran to the ghastly pair and struck out at the corpse. The corpse groaned in pain and struck at the constable, who saw now that the young man was indeed dead, just as the drunks had reported. He whispered a strange prayer and ran off to find more officers. The sun began to rise, and the rain began to stop, and the corpse saw in the distance trees, mountains, forest, a river. Its eyes widened. Naked and stumbling and wounded and angry and sad, it ran off towards the beautiful sight. "Where are you going now? We have to get back to your grave, please. Come on," the ghost shouted, but, swift as the wind, followed after his body yet again. His body slipped and fell in the wet grass, covering himself in mud and staining himself with green. He rolled down a slippery hill, shouting in panic and falling into the river. It was cold and clean, and it shocked his dead skin at first, but then it felt deliciously good, and in a rasping, dry, lifeless voice, he laughed. The sun came out. The ghost sat on the side of the river, watching his body swim and laugh. the ghost thought to himself, that he had lived his whole life by this river, and yet never thought to swim in it. A deer came by and grazed lazily nearby. The ghost shouted, "Go away, get away from here. He'll kill you." But the deer did not hear him, and the undead thing in the river watched the juicy, meaty, living thing. And he only smiled and kept swimming. The ghost looked at himself, truly, finally. "It was never you. You were never the problem," he whispered. "It was I who was the coward. Forgive me." And the corpse, for the first time since he'd risen, turned his pale eyes to look at his own ghost and whispered back, "No, you weren't." The ghost looked at his body, looked at himself in the eye, and a realization occurred between the two. The body had its desires in life that either were or were not fulfilled. That is the nature of things. That is no great tragedy. That is simply the way of it. But the ghost within it had its judgments that held both itself and its body back. And that was a great tragedy. But it was all over now. They could be free. In one swift movement, the ghost leapt from the riverbank and into the arms of his body, who held him miraculously, tightly in an embrace. Weeping, the two of him held each other. "It's all right. It's all right," he whispered. And the body rested now, and this time for good, and was swept away by the river, out to some sea that he had also never swam in before. I don't know if the ghost remained. I've thought about it. Perhaps he decided to roam the world, see what he could, experience vicariously whatever he was able to by witnessing the living. Perhaps a white light opened up over his head and he decided to rise up and follow it. Perhaps he stayed on that riverside for a little while and thought about it. Perhaps he began an entirely new life, where he would be presented with countless new opportunities to either take or not take, to regret doing or not doing. Who knows? It's just a little story. Just a short little one about a body living just one more night, and its ghost trying not to be quite so hard on it. Oh wow. I didn't even realize that in the midst of telling this story, I let go of that human hand that was guiding me, and the world went dark, and the almost full moon is the only thing here with me. How beautiful it is. How powerful I feel. Even just for this one moment. And I hear someone screaming beside me. Shh. There, sweet one. It's all right. I'm here. It's all right to feel afraid. It's all right to feel alone. It's all right to feel longing. It's all right to feel. Hold my hand. Good work. Now, let's go this way. La 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 la. Thank you so much for joining me for episode 286 of On a Dark, Cold Night, my friends. This is Kristen Zaza, your writer, narrator, composer, podcaster, etc. behind the show. I hope you're doing well out there. I'm still going through a time of change and chaos and a kind of grief for a life, a time that has passed, and am trying my best. Getting there, anyway. And I'm grateful to you for joining me in that and walking down this road with me, wherever on earth it's going. Sending love and gratitude to everyone who supports the show on a monthly basis on Patreon. It means the world to me every day, my friends. Thank you. Every supporter of $1 or more a month US gets access to my complete soundtrack, while supporters of $5 or more a month US get that, a monthly tarot reading video every full moon, a monthly extra-long bonus episode every new moon that you can have input in by engaging with me and others in our exclusive Kindred Spirit community chat on Patreon, and a database of 70 quick moment mini meditation episodes. To learn more, visit patreon.com/darkcoldnight. If you'd like to support the show one time only without any perks, you can buy me one or more metaphorical coffees at ko-fi.com/darkcoldnight, or by buying a t-shirt or hoodie at bonfire.com/on-a-dark-cold-night. You can pick up my book, On a Dark Cold Night, Tales of Loneliness, Creation, and Love on Amazon. It's a collection of 28 of my favorite stories from the show, and 2 new original pieces as prologue, epilogue, and a preface as well. It's available on Amazon in paperback or Kindle ebook format as well. If you do, and you read it and enjoy it, you can follow me on Goodreads, give me a rating, that would be awesome. And my albums, Favorite Little Songs from On a Dark Cold Night, Volumes 1 and 2, are available to stream on Spotify, iTunes, or lots of other music streamers, so check those out. I'd love if you left the podcast a rating or a review on Spotify, Facebook, iTunes, or wherever else you like to rate and review podcasts. Follow me on social media. I'm on Facebook and YouTube under On a Dark Cold Night, Instagram at Dark Cold Night Podcast, TikTok and Blue Sky under On a Dark Cold Night, or on Twitter at A Dark Cold Night. Thank you so much for listening and spending this time with me, my friends. Please stay well. Get lots of rest. Take care of yourselves. And reach out in the darkness for someone's hand if you need to. I'm trying myself to remember that it's not a bad thing to need others sometimes. Lots of love and sweet dreams.
This podcast has been brought to you by the Sonar Network. Sonar.